For 6 episodes, we have watched Iran execute the most methodical asymmetric military campaign in modern history. Episode 1, the Haj Qasim over Tel Aviv. Episode 2, the Khorramshahr 4 that shut down Ben Gurion Airport. Episode 3, 300, Shahed 136 drones bleeding Israel's interceptor magazines dry. Episode 4, the Sorek 2 desalination plant, 3 million Israelis without water. Episode 5, $4.2 billion of American air power destroyed at Al Udeid and Al Dhafra in 8 minutes. Episode 6, 5 runways cratered, seeded with submunitions, repair equipment depots erased, Al Udeid grounded for 16 days minimum. Each strike more sophisticated than the last. Each one targeting a different pillar of American and Israeli military capability. Each one executed at a cost ratio so asymmetric that the United States has spent $40 responding to every dollar Iran invested in attacking. Tonight, Iran did something none of us, not the Pentagon, not Israeli intelligence, not the analysts, not this channel, fully anticipated. It did not strike a 4th target. It struck 3 simultaneously, in 11 minutes, across 3 countries, completing what military strategists will study for the next 50 years as the most perfectly executed airbase denial campaign ever conducted by a non-nuclear power against a superpower. Al Udeid in Qatar, already grounded from episode 6, was hit again to prevent reconstruction crews from working. Al Dhafra in the UAE, already degraded from episode 5, received a second runway denial package identical to what destroyed Al Udeid's surfaces. And then, the strike that changes everything, Salem Air Base in Kuwait. The one base that American planners had kept deliberately quiet. The one base that had been absorbing rerouted operations from both Al Udeid and Al Dhafra since episode 5. The one base that the entire U.S. air operation in the Middle East theater had been quietly depending on to keep functioning while the other 2 were rebuilt. Iran knew. Iran had always known. And in 11 minutes, it took that base too. Every U.S. warplane in the Middle East is now grounded. Not degraded, not reduced. Grounded. The most powerful air force in human history cannot fly a single combat sortie from a fixed base between the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean tonight. And somewhere over the North Atlantic, the B-2s that departed Whiteman Air Force Base in episode 5 have just received new orders. Welcome to Geopolitics Meets Money. This is episode 7. This is where the war changes direction. To understand why the selection of Ali al-Salem as Iran's 3rd target tonight represents the single most strategically intelligent targeting decision of this entire conflict, you need to understand what Ali al-Salem is, and more importantly, what it became the moment Al Udeid and Al Dhafra went dark. Ali al-Salem Air Base sits in northwestern Kuwait, approximately 60 kilometers from the Iraqi border. It is not as large as Al Udeid. It does not carry Al Udeid's prestige or its command infrastructure. It is not as modern as Al Dhafra. In normal operational conditions, Ali al-Salem functions as a forward operating location, a base that supports rotational deployments, hosts prepositioned equipment, and provides overflow capacity for the larger hubs when operational tempo spikes. In normal conditions, Ali al-Salem is a supporting player, but the moment Episode 5 destroyed Al Udeid's aircraft and Episode 6 destroyed its runways, Ali al-Salem stopped being a supporting player overnight. Every combat aircraft that could be relocated was moved there. Every aerial refueling mission that had been flying from Al Udeid was rerouted through Ali al-Salem. Every close air support sortie, every intelligence surveillance flight, every medevac operation that the grounded bases could no longer support was redirected to Kuwait. Ali al-Salem went from operating at 30% capacity to 340% capacity in 72 hours. Its fuel infrastructure was overwhelmed. Its maintenance crews were working 20-hour shifts. Its runway surfaces, designed for rotational light deployment loads, not sustained heavy bomber operations, were already showing stress fractures from the surge in F-15E and B-52 operations before Iran fired a single missile tonight. Iran did not need to find Ali al-Salem. It watched the United States hand it the target by process of elimination. Every aircraft that landed in Kuwait after episodes 5 and 6 was a data point. Every fuel tanker convoy that rerouted north from Qatar was a signal. Every signals intelligence intercept of American air traffic control communications, shifting from Al Udeid frequencies to Ali al-Salem frequencies, was a confirmation. Iran's targeting cell, the reconstituted version of the unit Israeli forces partially destroyed in Episode 4, now operating from a dispersed network of smaller facilities across 3 Iranian provinces, specifically to survive future Israeli strikes, had Ali al-Salem's complete operational picture within 48 hours of Al Udeid going dark. They knew the runway load ratings, they knew the fuel depot locations, they knew the maintenance hangar positions. They knew that Ali al-Salem had only one functional Patriot PAC-3 battery protecting it, because the second battery had been redeployed to reinforce Al Dhafra's degraded air defense after Episode 5, one Patriot battery, against Iran's full remaining strike inventory. It was not a fair fight. Iran did not intend it to be. Here is the operational reality that every Western military analyst will be dissecting for years. Executing simultaneous coordinated strikes against targets in Qatar, the UAE, and Kuwait, 3 separate sovereign nations with 3 separate air defense networks, 3 separate radar environments, and 3 separate GPS approach corridors. In an 11-minute window requires a level of pre-strike coordination, encrypted communications, security, and launch timing precision that puts Iran's operational military capability in a category that the Pentagon's public threat assessments have consistently and catastrophically underestimated. The strike architecture worked as follows. Against Al-Udeid, the strike to prevent reconstruction, Iran used a relatively modest package of 8 Shahed 136 drones, specifically targeted at the American engineering teams and their temporary repair equipment that had been airlifted from Germany and South Korea to begin crater-filling operations. The drones did not need to destroy runways. The runways were already destroyed. They needed only to make the repair zone too dangerous for engineers to work in, seeding fresh submunitions among the existing denial field and destroying 2 of the 3 temporary concrete batch plants that American radar teams had established at the runway perimeter. Repair timeline at Al-Udeid reset to 0. The 16-day minimum from Episode 6 begins again tonight. Against Dhafra, the UAE base damaged in Episode 5, but not fully runway denied because Iran had concentrated its Episode 6 munitions entirely on Al-Udeid. Tonight's package delivered the same 3-munition sequential engineering strike that grounded Qatar, penetrating cratering munitions first, submunition denial field second, radar equipment depot destruction third. Al-Dhafra's runways, which had survived Episode 5 with aircraft destruction but pavement intact, are now cratered, seeded, and without repair equipment. Minimum grounding timeline, 16 days, matching Al-Udeid. Against Ali al-Salem, the masterstroke, Iran used its heaviest remaining Fateh-2 hypersonic missiles exclusively, not because Ali al-Salem required hypersonic penetration to defeat its defenses, but because the Fateh-2's hypersonic terminal velocity, Mach 13 in final approach, gives the single operational Patriot PAC-3 battery protecting Kuwait's base a theoretical intercept probability of less than 12% per incoming round in real combat conditions, as demonstrated by the failures in Episodes 5 and 6. Iran fired 6 Fateh-2 rounds at Ali al-Salem. The Patriot battery attempted intercepts on all 6. It achieved 1 partial detonation, enough to deflect 1 warhead's trajectory by 40 meters, causing it to impact a perimeter fence rather than its intended target. The remaining 5 impacted with full effect. Ali al-Salem's 2 operational runways are destroyed. Its primary fuel storage facility, holding 4.2 million gallons of JP-8 aviation fuel accumulated during the surge operations of the past 72 hours, detonated in a secondary explosion visible from Kuwait City 18 kilometers away. Its single maintenance hangar complex, packed with aircraft undergoing emergency repair from Episodes 5 and 6, is gone. 11 minutes, 3 countries. 0 functional U.S. air bases remaining between the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean. 6 episodes into this series, Geopolitics Meets Money has been tracking the intelligence question that no Western outlet has answered publicly. Who is coordinating this? The operational sophistication of what Iran has executed across 7 episodes, the sequential targeting logic, the munition selection precision, the timing architecture, the deliberate exploitation of American rerouting decisions, does not emerge from a committee. It emerges from a single strategic mind with deep knowledge of American basing doctrine, NATO airfield repair protocols, and U.S. Air Force operational rerouting procedures under degraded conditions. Unit 8200 and CIA signals intelligence intercepts, shared with select Western journalists under background briefing conditions in the hours following tonight's strike, have identified that individual, Brigadier General Shahram Hassanpour, former deputy commander of the IRGC Aerospace Forces Strategic Planning Directorate, a figure so deliberately obscured from public record that his name does not appear in a single Western intelligence agency's published threat assessment. A man who spent 8 years embedded with Russian aerospace forces in Syria, studying American air operation patterns, basing logistics and damage recovery doctrine from the one theater where U.S. and Russian air power operated in the same airspace simultaneously. Hassanpour did not design weapons. He designed sequences. He studied how the American military rebuilds after damage, the precise timelines, the equipment chains, the rerouting decisions, and then engineered a strike campaign that targets the rebuild at every stage, not just the initial destruction. Ali al-Salem was not selected because it was the biggest target. It was selected because Hassanpour's models showed it was the base the U.S. would rely on when the other 2 were hit, and that relying on it would concentrate American air assets into a single location that could then be struck with maximum efficiency. He was right. And tonight, he may have just achieved something no Iranian military planner has ever achieved before. the complete temporary air denial of American power projection across an entire theater of operations. Across 6 previous episodes, we have tracked individual financial consequences: oil spikes, stock movements, currency collapses, insurance suspensions. Tonight, the numbers do not move individually. Tonight, they move together. And when they move together, the result is not a market disruption. It is a market event of a kind that financial historians will categorize alongside 2008 and 1973. Brent crude crossed $200 per barrel at 6.14 GMT, the first time in history that oil has traded above $200 on a major exchange, not on the basis of actual supply disruption. The Strait of Hormuz remains technically open. Qatari LNG tankers are still sailing. Saudi Aramco's export facilities are untouched. The $200 price is not a supply price. It is a fear price. The market's collective judgment that a conflict capable of grounding every U.S. fixed-wing aircraft in the Middle East in 11 minutes is a conflict one decision away from closing the Strait of Hormuz entirely, cutting 21% of global oil supply from world markets indefinitely. Fear prices are self-fulfilling. At $200 oil, European manufacturing input costs become non-viable within weeks. German industrial output, already under pressure from 3 years of elevated energy costs since the Ukraine invasion, faces immediate production curtailments. Asian economies dependent on Gulf energy imports, particularly Japan, South Korea, and India, activated emergency strategic reserve release protocols within hours of the oil price crossing $180 before it even reached $200. The IMF, in an emergency statement released at 8 Washington time, revised its global growth forecast for the current year from 2.8% to negative 1.1%, a swing of nearly 4 percentage points driven entirely by energy price assumptions embedded in the new conflict scenario. Negative 1.1% global growth is, by every technical definition, a global recession. The IMF has not projected negative global growth since 2009. Defense stocks told a different story. Lockheed Martin, manufacturer of the F-35s destroyed across episodes 5, 6, and now 7, rose 14.3% in pre-market trading, its largest single-session gain since the post-9/11 defense spending surge. Raytheon's Patriot division, whose repeated failure to intercept Fata 2 hypersonic rounds has now been documented across 3 separate combat engagements, faces a congressional hearing request from 6 Senate Armed Services Committee members who want public answers about the $3.2 billion the U.S. government spent on Patriot upgrades in the last 5 years, the Pentagon's cumulative supplemental budget request, which began at $7.8 billion after Episode 5 and was revised to $11.4 billion after Episode 6, now stands at $19.7 billion, a figure that exceeds the entire annual defense budget of all but 8 nations on Earth. Congress will pass it. The question is not whether America will spend this money. The question is whether spending it changes anything before Hassanpur's next sequence begins. And now 6 episodes after they departed Whiteman Air Force Base on what the Pentagon called a routine training mission, the B-2 Spirit stealth bombers enter this story. At 2:33 local time, 47 minutes before Iran's 11-minute strike package hit its third base, 2 B-2s that had been holding in a pre-strike orbit pattern over the northern Arabian Sea received final release authority from the National Command Authority in Washington. The release authority carried a target list that had been building since Episode 5, not a reactive list assembled in the heat of the moment, a pre-authorized, pre-coordinated strategic target set representing America's considered answer to everything Iran has done across 7 episodes. The B-2's defining characteristic is not its payload, it is its invisibility. An aircraft with a radar cross-section equivalent to a small bird, flying at 50,000 feet, emitting no radar signals, producing no infrared signature detectable by ground-based sensors at operational range. Iran's Bavar 373 air defense system, its most advanced domestically produced long-range surface-to-air missile network, cannot reliably detect a B-2 until it is within 40 kilometers of the launch battery. At B-2 cruise speed, 40 kilometers is less than 3 minutes of flight time. Not enough time to complete a full engagement sequence. The B-2s carried GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators, the 30,000-pound bunker-busting bombs that represent the heaviest conventional weapon in the American arsenal. Each B-2 carried 4 GBU-57s total, each one capable of penetrating 60 meters of reinforced concrete before detonating, specifically designed to reach the hardened underground facilities where Iran has buried its most critical military infrastructure. Target 1, the Fordow Fuel Enrichment Plant, Iran's deepest buried nuclear-adjacent facility, constructed beneath a mountain in Qom province at a depth previously considered immune to conventional munitions. The GBU-57 was specifically developed to defeat Fordow, 2 penetrators impacted within 23 meters of each other on the facility's primary access shaft. Structural assessment from seismic monitoring data indicates a full tunnel collapse across the facility's main production level. Target 2, the dispersed IRGC Aerospace Force Command Facility network that Hassanpur had deliberately spread across 3 locations in Alborz, Isfahan, and Kerman provinces after Israel destroyed the centralized command hub in Episode 4. The B-2s, operating in coordination with a simultaneous Tomahawk salvo from Ohio-class submarines repositioned during the past 72 hours, struck all 3 dispersed locations within a 90-second window, closing the distributed command architecture that Hassanpur had designed specifically to survive Israeli strikes. The architect built a network that could survive losing any single node. America did not remove a single node, it removed all 3 simultaneously. Here is where Geopolitics Meets Money stands after 7 episodes of the most consequential military and financial series this channel has ever produced. Iran executed the most sophisticated asymmetric air denial campaign in modern military history. Across 7 episodes, it grounded every American warplane in the Middle East theater, destroyed $4.2 billion in hardware, cratered 16 runways, shut down a civilian airport, eliminated a nation's water supply, and imposed an estimated $340 billion in cumulative global economic damage, at a total munitions cost that intelligence analysts estimate does not exceed $180 million. America responded with 2 B-2 bombers, 4 bunker-busting bombs, and 187 Tomahawk missiles that destroyed Iran's deepest buried facility and eliminated the strategic planning network that made all 7 episodes possible. Neither side has won. Neither side has lost. Iran has demonstrated that it can impose asymmetric costs on American power projection at ratios that no superpower's defense budget is designed to absorb indefinitely. America has demonstrated that when it finally decides to respond with its most capable systems, no facility Iran has ever built is deep enough or dispersed enough to survive. The question that Geopolitics Meets Money puts to you tonight is the question that will define the next decade of global geopolitics, energy markets, and military doctrine simultaneously. Iran spent $180 million to impose $340 billion in global economic damage and temporarily ground the world's most powerful air force. America spent an unknown sum to destroy the brain that made it possible. But the brain can be rebuilt. The doctrine has been proven. The cost ratios have been demonstrated for every adversary, every proxy force, and every non-state actor on Earth to study, replicate, and improve upon. Has Iran just written the military and financial playbook that every future asymmetric conflict will follow? Or has the American response, invisible aircraft, bunker-busting bombs, simultaneous multi-node elimination, demonstrated that the playbook has a last chapter that no asymmetric actor can survive? Drop your answer below. Share this video if you have followed this series from episode 1, because what we have documented across these 7 episodes is not just a fictional conflict scenario. It is a precise blueprint of the strategic, military, and financial logic that real decision makers in Tehran, Washington, Jerusalem, and Beijing are studying right now. This has been the GMM Iran-Israel series, 7 episodes. One question that does not have a comfortable answer. This is Geopolitics Meets Money. Stay sharp.